Hello and welcome to another session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host Javed Mohammed, and I'm very honored to have with us Alex Kay, who is a Senior Principal Product Manager at Oracle. Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Javed. How are you doing?
Oh, excellent, thank you.
Great.
So you, Alex, have been a part of the Oracle Groundbreakers APAC tour, 2020, virtual 2020 tour, and you have a couple of presentations there, but I thought today we'll just focus on one of them, which was exploring the multi-cloud, integrating Azure and Oracle database cloud services. Sounds like a mouthful, but I thought maybe just start off, help us understand, we normally think of Oracle, Microsoft, and Azure versus Oracle as competitors. So seems like we have some kind of an alliance. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And many people who work in the computer industry and IT industry know there's a term called co-opetition.
Uh-huh.
Many times, the companies compete, but they also need to integrate and work together for our mutual customer benefit. And actually, even though this partnership Microsoft and Oracle have in our clouds with Azure and the Oracle Cloud, we signed that last year in middle of 2019.
Uh-huh.
We've actually had a partnership going way before that for many decades. Because before we were both cloud vendors, we were on-premise vendors, and as on-premise vendors, Microsoft had the Windows Server, Oracle had the Oracle database, and being two very dominant products in their fields, we worked together very well producing Oracle database products on Windows, integrating with all the way back to ODBC, OLADB, and then .NET Framework, and now they're .NET Core. So we're used to having this one competition on one level,
Uh-huh.
which we try to build the best products for customers, and then also cooperation in which we ensure our products work well with each other so that our mutual customers really benefit from that. And that really is what led to this cloud partnership with Microsoft, is that we saw a lot of customers were using Oracle Cloud and wanted to use some aspects of Azure, such as like their app service or Microsoft Office 365. So, and the thing about using two different clouds is that, well, how do we ensure security and high performance? So that's, and also ensuring the vendors can work together. So the cloud partnership with Microsoft came together in that way, in which we got this direct interconnect that we set up between data centers that are close by to each other to ensure that high security and high performance, as well as we provide mutual support. So and also a mutual identity. So if you sign on to the Oracle Cloud, you can have your user identity be integrated to Azure Active Directory as well as on-premise Active Directory, so that it's single sign-on. It's much easier for the administrator to manage. It's easier for the user to handle their just one identity through all these different clouds and on-premise. So we think there's a ton of benefit for customers, because multi-cloud is really how the entire industry is going. Just like you don't have one vendor that sells you, there's only one application server out there that is only being used by the entire IT industry. No one database, no one operating system. There won't be one cloud out there. There'll be many clouds, and all those clouds will need to work together, and that's why we're doing this partnership.
So basically, Alex, by what you're describing, it sounds like through the single sign-on and all the other security features, does this basically just become an extension? So if you're an Oracle user or an Azure user, does it just kind of become a seamless thing, so that whatever other applications they are, whether it be, 365 or whatever it is, Office 365, it just becomes a natural extension of the different cloud services that a user has access to?
Well, it could always progress toward a much deeper level of integration. For now, because each cloud has its own offerings, it's more of a integration between clouds. But there's no reason. But even even within each cloud, we do offer Microsoft products within the Oracle Cloud. So you can get Windows in the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. You can get even SQL Server within the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. So we do see we are adopting more and more Microsoft products within the Oracle Cloud, and of course you can use that. It's quote unquote already integrated in there. to use with, say, Oracle Autonomous Database or any other of Oracle Fusion Cloud services that you might be using.
Okay. So in your presentation, what else do you discuss or share? Like, do you demonstrate something within that?
Yeah. So what I did in the presentation was we showed several ways you can use. It was actually, the presentation was actually quite focused on our autonomous database cloud, which is very innovative in terms of making the database much easier to use, because in the autonomous database cloud, you don't have to worry about upgrading anymore, applying patches anymore, applying security. The autonomous database cloud does that automatically for you for the most part. And what it lets the developer do or the IT administrator do is just focus on building the business logic for the application, rather than having to figure out, how do I optimize for performance? How do I ensure it's always updated and patched? And so I try to focus how the Microsoft tools as well as Azure integrate with that. So I showed how, if you're using Visual Studio, how you can manage the autonomous database as a developer with Visual Studio, also from Visual Studio Code, how to connect to the autonomous database. And then I did a demonstration of a common scenario we think will occur is a customer wants to use a Microsoft Azure app service. So I created a ASP.NET Core application with .NET Core and our Oracle data provider for .NET Core. Created an application, uploaded that to the Azure cloud, and then I connected that with the Oracle Autonomous Database in the Oracle Cloud. So I showed how, it was pretty seamless to do, how to set that up, some of the caveats, because the database will require a certain level of security. So we have to ensure that the Azure App Service also can support being able to use wallets and things like that. So I've kind of demonstrated that. So that's one of the ways to integrate. We think that'll be a common scenario.
All right. A couple of other questions. One of the questions I'd usually like to ask is about community. And normally, certainly with the community that we deal with, we deal with a lot of the Oracle advocates, Oracle aces, Groundbreaker ambassadors, and folks like that. But it's interesting having this conversation about Oracle and Microsoft. As I said, you use that interesting term of co-option, but we also, in some ways, viewed as competitors. So, from a community standpoint, what does it mean? I mean, when you work with a potential rival, but also you're cooperating.
For the community, we hope that they'll be more productive, that they can be able to develop their applications faster than they normally would, find solutions faster. I mean, in the end, we both have to make our customers happy, and there really is there's no benefit to there's no real benefit to not cooperate here, because Oracle, we have a lot of database customers. Microsoft, they have a lot of developers there, and we feel that we have to help them, because it's good. It's something that what we try to do to make them successful, which is why they buy our products, why they use our products.
Excellent. So, and last question. You, as I mentioned at the outset, you're part of the Oracle Groundbreakers tour. Obviously, this year it's been a virtual tour. In the past, it's been an actual physical tour. And so I forget which. I didn't get to ask you at the outset, but I always like to ask people, where are they based, and if someone was to visit their neck of the woods, is there one experience or is there one food you would highly recommend them to try? So go ahead. I'll ask you that question.
So one place to visit. So I'm based out of Oracle headquarters in the San Francisco Bay Area. And one place to visit, well, since you have it as your background, it would be the Golden Gate Bridge, and that viewpoint is from the Marin County side. So that's actually quite beautiful, but there's many places you can go in the Bay Area to get a very beautiful view of the bridge. The Bay Bridge also is quite, San Francisco and the Bay Bridge is very beautiful as well if you look at it from the Oakland side. So if you are a believer in wonderful vistas, yes, Marin County around will be a great viewpoint for looking at the Golden Gate Bridge and the Oakland area if you
Uh-huh.
want to look towards San Francisco, because then you get the skyline as well as the Bay Bridge, which is also pretty iconic. Not as iconic as the Golden Gate because it's much
Uh-huh.
much older than the newer Bay Bridge, but the Bay
Uh-huh.
Bridge is also interesting architecture too.
Yeah,
And then a
go
food.
ahead. Uh-huh.
Well, there's quite a lot of food, but now there's it just seems like in the last couple of decades there's been a big renaissance in different types of food
Uh-huh.
and restaurants sprouting all over. But something iconic to San Francisco, um, yeah, it's a
Or just the Bay
that's a tough
Area.
one.
It doesn't
Well,
have to be the
well,
city.
let me say this. I know I grew up in Southern California, and
Uh-huh.
one thing that is very Californian is to get an In-N-Out burger. It's
Uh-huh.
actually um, it's actually not anything elaborate. It's actually quite affordable, but it's very delicious,
Uh-huh.
and people love it here. So it's because they only use fresh ingredients.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there's one close to Oracle headquarters in San Carlos.
Uh-huh.
I go to every so often, but they make a very good hamburger, and I
Uh-huh.
don't know how more American you can get than a hamburger, but
Uh-huh.
they do it very well. Fresh ingredients, and it's delicious. I love it. Yeah.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for sharing. I think you gave us a nuanced view, even though I'm about 50 miles from the Bay, so
Oh, you are? Okay,
yeah,
so you're
I'm
in
more
this
in the
area.
South Bay. So but for generally people who are not from the country or from the state, then when you have to describe where you are, this is a good landmark to describe.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So thank you so much for giving us your time and for sharing, Alex.
Oh no, thank you, Javid.
All right, then. All the best.